The human experiments, so horrifying, they were never repeated.
This video dives into the darkest corners of human experimentation. Real studies and government programs that were so disturbing, so morally bankrupt, that they were never allowed to happen again. From mind control projects run by intelligence agencies, to psychological torment inflicted on children, these are human experiments that were so horrifying, they've been buried, covered up, or sealed away. Which is why they were never repeated. Unit 731. Pretty sure most, if not all of us, learned about the horrific medical experiments in school. And well, here's something they probably didn't teach you. There was another group doing debatably even worse things at the exact same time, and somehow they managed to stay hidden for decades. We're talking about 1932. This is when Japan had just taken over Manchuria. A Japanese doctor named Dr. Shiro Ishii has this twisted idea where he looks at the Geneva Convention's ban on biological and chemical weapons and thinks, if they banned it, it must be really effective. I mean, pretty terrifying logic, but that's just how some minds work. Now here's what makes it rather disturbing. Just 30 years earlier, American doctors were praising Japan's medical advances during the Russo-Japanese War. They were calling Japan's military medicine the most humane in history. But Ishii took all that medical knowledge and flipped it into something absolutely monstrous. Under the cover of something called the Epidemic Prevention Research Laboratory, Ishii convinces the Japanese military to fund his biological weapons program. And get this, his main selling point wasn't scientific advancement or military superiority, it was money. He literally told them that germ warfare was cheaper than building tanks and planes. By 1936, they'd built this massive complex in Pingfang, near Harbin in Manchuria. We're talking about a walled city covering 6 kilometers with over 70 buildings, rivaling even Auschwitz in size. Hidden inside was a prison holding 500 men, women, and children who were about to become human guinea pigs. And fair to say, these Japanese researchers had this twisted sense of humor about what they were doing. In fact, when locals asked what they were building, they just said it was a lumber mill. Then they started calling the prisoners Maruta, which means logs in Japanese. According to one source, one researcher joked, "The people are logs." They literally dehumanized their victims to the point where they just saw them as pieces of wood. Now, the experiments themselves were beyond anything the Nazis ever did. They used to do this thing called vivisection. That's cutting people open while they're still alive. No anesthesia, just cutting them, split open. A former Unit 731.
Yo, this shit is so, and nigga, this is the first experiment that niggas is talking about. Yo, humans is low-key up. Like, we like our own worst enemy. Like, it's really insane.
Member described how victims would be screaming, trying to fight back as they were strapped down and cut open. They also had this researcher named Yoshimura Hisato, who was apparently obsessed with frostbite. He'd take prisoners outside in the Manchurian winter, douse their arms with water, and leave them until their limbs froze solid. Witnesses said the frozen arm sounded like a plank of wood, then hit with a cane.
That's a sick. Bro got off on that too. He was dead ass getting off on that. That's a very, very highly sick nigga right there.
And there were the weapons tests. They'd tie prisoners to stakes and test flamethrowers, grenades, and various bombs on them. They'd also put people in...
Double R! Thank you for that motherfucking goddamn raid. Appreciate you. Thank you for that raid, Miles. I appreciate you. W raid. Light 12 now. Shut up. Ain't no light 12. Ain't no light 12. In fact, Alexa, turn off BBG Glide.
Okay.
Alexa, turn off BBG Glide.
A couple things.
Alexa, turn off BBG Glide light.
Okay.
Okay. That's okay. Thank you for that raid, Mom. Thank you for that raid, bro. Thank you for that raid. I appreciate you. Thank you for that motherfucking raid, bro. No, Alexa, in fact, make BBG Glide light red at 100%. Alexa, are you sped?
Sorry, what did you say?
Okay, see, and that's what I'm talking about. I asked you to make the glide wall light red at 100%. Can you do that, please? Okay, so you're sped. I do myself, my nigga. You got it, bro. I do myself, bro. I do myself.
Pressure chambers until their eyes literally popped out. They spun victims in centrifuges until they died, usually around 10 to 15 G-forces, and to have more subjects, though the term victims would probably be more accurate, they had special black vans called Varanki, meaning ravens, that would drive around cities kidnapping people off the streets. The Japanese military police, the Kempai Tai, would just grab random civilians and deliver them to Unit 731, and all of it had the approval of Emperor Hirohito. With an annual budget of 10 million yen, that's about 86 million in today's money. By the end of the war, Unit 731 had expanded to 26 different facilities across occupied Asia with about 20,000 personnel. They were planning biological attacks on American cities, something called Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night, that would have used submarine-launched planes to spread plague across San Diego, Los Angeles,
Niggas
and
was
San
about
Francisco.
to spread plague, nigga. Sup, tube? What's up, man? Oh, that don't hit like that. Yo, what's up, guy? Hey, bro, hey, bro, just come to Twitch, Twitch Blue Ride right here. Follow up. We're about to hit 200K. Please follow up and stuff like that. Come to the stream. If you don't watch streams, I didn't ask. Come to the streams and stuff like that. And then there's a gaming channel and a live channel. Come follow the live channel too. And then you can get back to your video and stuff like that. But just go ahead and do that and send the link down below. And go ahead and do that. Nigga, that would have been tragic. I'm not gonna hold, bro. That would have been tragic, bro.
It didn't happen because Japan surrendered, and the states made a deal with Ishii, immunity from war crimes prosecution in exchange for their research data. Now here's the crazy thing. All that valuable research the US thought they were getting.
Yo. What'd you say?
Did you just Genjutsu reverse raid me? How did you raid me and you're still streaming?
I didn't raid you.
I watched you do it, and then it said I was in your chat, and it said it, and I got confused. What the did you just do?
I didn't do nothing, bro.
That's a liar. I see you in 4K with that damn camera lying to my face.
I ain't do shit. I'm just reacting. You see, I'm reacting like that shit. I think you're just like, you might be like, I don't know, something just going on up here that we don't know about type shit.
Oh wow! Okay, so
where are your glasses? Are you wearing contacts right now? Or you need your glasses.
So you're gonna lie in my face and then try to gaslight me?
Men can't be gaslit.
Hello?
You can't gaslight men.
What do you mean you can't gaslight men?
You can only gaslight women. You can't gaslight men. Getting gaslit as a man is sassy, so you can't be gaslit as a man. As a man.
As a man. Bitch ass nigga. Hello?
Regardless. Ended up being completely worthless. Turns out, brutally experimenting on human beings doesn't actually yield better scientific data than proper medical research. Mind control, aka
whenever we talking about Japan, bro, like they were like Japan has some of the best PR now of all time. Like niggas did the craziest 180 of all time, and you can see why, because like yo is doing some crazy shit, bro. Nobody even really thinks about that. Project MK Ultra. This sounds familiar, but like the name sounds familiar. But the actual experiment, I don't recall.
Project MK Ultra. Alright, so it's 1953, Cold War's in full swing, and the CIA is dead set on the idea that the Soviets have somehow figured out mind control. They're seeing prisoners of war coming back from Korea acting weird, and intel officers are basically losing it over this new thing everyone's calling, quote, brainwashing. Now, Alan Dulles, the CIA director, doesn't want America to fall behind.
Just notice who is at the head of this. When they're talking about the CIA, just look at who's at the head of this. Just remember this face, right?
Calling, quote, brainwashing. Now, Alan Dulles, the CIA director, doesn't want America to fall behind in what he calls the sinister battle for men's minds, so he approved something that would become one of the most disturbing chapters in American intelligence history, Project MK Ultra. And no, this wasn't some rogue operation by a lone government agency. No, this was official US government policy, running from 1953 to at least 1973. It had a budget that would eventually hit millions of dollars. And what was the goal? Well, to find ways to control human behavior using drugs, psychological manipulation, and honestly, whatever they could think of. I mean, it was an experiment after all. The mastermind behind this whole operation was a CIA chemist named Sidney Gottlieb. This guy had access to a relatively new drug that Swiss chemist Albert Hofmann had accidentally discovered in 1943, LSD. And Gottlieb thought, what if I could use this to break enemy spies or create the perfect truth serum? A plan that would then go absolutely insane. They didn't just test the stuff on volunteers who knew what they were signing up for, no. The CIA set up fake brothels in San Francisco and New York, complete with two-way mirrors and recording equipment. They called it, and I swear I'm not making this up, Operation Midnight Climax. They'd have prostitutes slip LSD into clients' drinks, then CIA agents would sit behind those mirrors, literally drinking cocktails while watching these unwitting men have psychotic episodes. One agent...
So was doing Bill Cosby tactics to the men, and then was going through Persona 5 actions, my nigga? Dead ass serious? And niggas was just sipping, just watching it happen? Yo, that's up, nigga. That's why yo be talking, be on the CIA. Well, let me not say nothing about the CIA, because CIA, y'all have done enough. I don't want no beef, bro. I don't want no beef, bro. I'm not gonna say what I was gonna say.
Agent George White wrote to Gottlieb saying it was fun, asking, where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, deceive, and pillage with the sanction and the blessing of the All-Highest? The thing is, like you probably already guessed, this program was violating every ethical standard there was. The Nuremberg Code had been established just 8 years earlier after the Nazi medical experiments, clearly stating that voluntary consent was, quote, absolutely essential for human experimentation, but the CIA, well, they basically threw that out the window. The most tragic case was Dr. Frank Olson. In November of 1953, Gottlieb secretly dosed Olson and several other army scientists with LSD during what they thought was just a work retreat. Olson had a severe psychological reaction, and 9 days later, he crashed through a hotel window in New York City, falling to his death from the 10th floor. The CIA apparently claimed it was self-harm due to his mental state. But interestingly, they didn't tell his family what really happened until 1975. More than 20 years later, when the family had his body exhumed in 1994, forensic evidence suggested he might have been struck in the head before going through that window. Now you might be wondering,
niggas be saying, like, a lot of the time when niggas have conspiracy theories, bro, like they be saying, oh nah, nigga, this like this type of stuff will never happen, it's never happened before, or man, you're just like a goddamn aluminum tinfoil hat wearing ass. But some of this shit do got merit to it, bro, because look at that, bro, and he didn't tell his family until so much later, bro.
We know about all of this. Shouldn't it be locked somewhere in some secret government vault? Well, that's because in 1973, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered almost all MK Ultra files destroyed, but somehow, some financial records survived by accident. And journalist John Marks used the Freedom of Information Act to piece together the nightmare that the project was. Oh, and FYI, this wasn't just happening in some secret CIA basement either. They funded experiments at 44 colleges and universities, 15 research foundations, 12 hospitals, and 3 prisons. And after spending all that time and resources for 2 decades, MK Ultra basically produced nothing useful. LSD was and still is too unpredictable, and the mind control techniques didn't quite work.
Bro, so insane, gang. And like, they're still doing, nigga, they were about to burn the file so nobody knew about it, gang. Sounds a little familiar with what it's doing right now, but you know, I ain't saying nothing.
Monster study of 1939. Back in 1939, a 5-year-old orphan at Iowa Soldiers Orphans Home would see a kind-looking lady show up every few weeks, claiming she was there to help with speech. But instead of offering to help, she'd start saying things that would haunt this child for life, insisting they were beginning to stutter, that their speech was terrible, and that they shouldn't speak unless they could do it perfectly. That's what became known as the Monster Study, an experiment so unethical that it stayed hidden for over 60 years. The mastermind behind this nightmare was Dr. Wendell Johnson, a stutterer himself.
Nigga, is that Pedro Pascal?
Who worked at the University of Iowa. Johnson had this theory that stuttering wasn't born in a child's mouth, but in their parents' ear. Basically, he believed that constantly correcting a kid's normal speech is what actually creates stuttering. But instead of studying this theory in some ethical way, Johnson decided to test it on orphans. You know, kids with no parents to protect them, and maybe no advocates to speak up for them. He got his graduate student Mary Tudor to carry out the actual experiment, and here's what they did. They screened 256 children and selected 22 kids between ages 5 and 16. Half of them already had stutters, half were considered normal speakers. Then they divided them into 4 groups. But the really sick part was what they told the kids who didn't stutter. 6 normal-speaking children were put into what they called Group IIA, the negative reinforcement group. Tudor would sit these kids down and tell them something like, the staff has come to the conclusion that you have a great deal of trouble with your speech. You have many symptoms of a child who is beginning to stutter. You must try to stop yourself immediately. Don't ever speak unless you can do it right. And yes, those were actual words from that conversation.
Wow.
And that seemingly simple but cruel order.
Man, nigga like me would have been like, I would have been silent as shit. Because I can't, you know, y'all know that I be stuttering. But the thing is, do I really be stuttering that bad though? I don't think I do. I really think when I stutter, it's It's like it's not even a stutter for real. I'm not gonna lie. It's not even really a stutter, bro. Type shit. Anyways.
Actually messed up some of the kids. 5-year-old Norma Jean Poog became so afraid to speak that it was very difficult to get her to speak, although she spoke very freely the month before. 9-year-old Betty Romp, quote, practically refuses to talk, and would hold her hand over her eyes most of the time.
Tears.
All the kids in the negative group saw their schoolwork suffer. One boy, 11-year-old Clarence Pfeiffer, started actually correcting himself and told tutor he could sometimes feel words getting stuck inside him.
Wow.
Another kid, 12-year-old Mary Koloske, became so withdrawn that she stopped talking to her best friend. 2 years later, she ran away from the orphanage. When it was all over, colleagues at the University of Iowa were horrified enough by this experiment that they nicknamed it the Monster Study in the 1940s and 50s. Johnson never published the results, probably because he was embarrassed by what he'd done, and the experiment didn't prove Johnson's theory. The kids didn't actually develop stutters, they just became terrified to speak. All that psychological damage for absolutely nothing.
Damn, Johnson is like that?
The Tuskegee experiment. For this next case, let's say you're a poor black sharecropper in rural Alabama in 1932. A government doctor shows up and tells you have, quote, bad blood, a sort of catch-all term people used for everything back then, from fatigue to anemia. And they're offering you something unheard of for someone like you: free medical care, hot meals, and even money for your burial when you die. Sounds too good to be true, right? Well, indeed it was. Because what these men didn't know was that they just become unwitting subjects in the Tuskegee syphilis study. 40 years of
niggas are down bad would do it.
It started in Macon County, Alabama, a place they called the Black Belt because of its rich soil and the thousands of black sharecroppers. So the year was around 1932, and the US Public Health Service had a problem they wanted solved. They wanted to study what syphilis does to the human body when it's left completely untreated.
Nigga, syphilis, bro? Syphilis? Alexa, what does syphilis do?
I'm not sure what went wrong.
Alexa, what does syphilis do?
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
Alexa, what is syphilis?
According to Mayo Clinic, syphilis is a bacterial infection usually spread through sexual contact. The disease starts as a painless sore, usually on the genitals, rectum, or mouth. After the initial infection, the syphilis bacteria can lie dormant in your body for decades before becoming active again. Early syphilis can be cured, but without treatment, syphilis can severely damage your heart, brain, or other organs, and can be life-threatening. It may also be passed to a baby during pregnancy or childbirth, and sometimes through breastfeeding.
Now, you can't exactly put out an ad saying, "Wanted, volunteers to let a deadly disease destroy your body."
That's crazy,
right?
bro.
So they got creative with their recruitment strategy. They went door to door in this
testing out diseases,
community, telling black men they had bad blood. But don't worry, the nice government doctor said, "We're here to help you for free." They signed up 600 men, 399 who actually had syphilis, and 201 who didn't. The researchers further sweetened the deal with perks like meals on clinic days, free rides to appointments, treatment for minor ailments, and burial insurance. The last part feels like they were literally planning for these men to die, which, spoiler alert, they were.
What the is nigga burial insurance?
And die they did, because the treatment these men received was nothing more than aspirin and iron supplements. The researchers watched as syphilis ravaged their subjects' nervous systems, hearts, and brains. They documented every symptom, every progression of the disease, every death. Then 1947 rolled around. Penicillin had at this point been proven as a cure for syphilis. This should have been the end of the study, right? These men could finally be healed and just be over with it, right? Well, no. Instead, the researchers made a calculated decision to withhold treatment. They convinced local doctors to not treat the participants. The cure existed, but they really wanted to see what happened when the disease ran its full course. For 25 more years,
niggas had opportunity to save, was like, no. But I'm not surprised. They ain't give a fuck about us, bro. They ain't give a fuck about us.
They let men go blind, lose their minds, etc., as they documented their deaths, all while knowing they could save them with a single injection. This kept going until 1966, when a public health service worker named Peter Buxton stumbled across the study and was absolutely horrified. He reported it to his superiors, assuming they shut it down immediately, but they didn't. They formed a committee, reviewed the study, and decided to keep going until every last participant was dead. Buxton couldn't live with that. He leaked the information to journalist Jean Heller, and when she broke the story...
motherfucking leak, nigga? Like, damn, that's crazy. Nah, let's keep that moving though, bro. Like, what the? Even when the coming to y'all and talking y'all about it, that's wild, yo. W leak, nigga. W leak.
Buxton couldn't live with that. He leaked the information to journalist Jean Heller, and when she broke the story in 1972, America was forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. Their government had spent 4 decades using black men as human lab rats. By the time the study ended, at least 128 men had died from syphilis or related complications, 40 wives had contracted the disease, and 19 children were born with congenital syphilis. Today, when people ask why there's vaccine hesitancy in black communities, the answer often traces back to a simple fact. The US government really spent 40 years proving that black lives didn't matter to medical researchers.
That's actually so sick, bro. And they literally could have saved them, but didn't. Just was like, oh no, let's see what happens. Like to all of them. Like even after testing 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 and seeing what fully happened, he just wanted to do it to everybody, bro.
Slave experiment.
The slave
experiment? But Tuskegee wasn't America's first experiment in medical racism. It just so happens to be the most famous. Because
my bad.
Tuskegee wasn't America's first experiment in medical racism. It just so happens to be the most famous. Because decades before the government was watching black men die from untreated syphilis, a doctor in Montgomery, Alabama was already treating black women's bodies like laboratory equipment. Meet Dr. James Marion Sims, a man who history books celebrate as, quote, the father of modern gynecology. He invented the vaginal speculum, pioneered surgical techniques for fistula repair, and founded the first women's hospital in America. Medical school still teaches methods today, but here's what those same textbooks often leave out. Every breakthrough Sims achieved was built on the screams of enslaved black women who had no choice but to endure. Medical school still teaches methods today, but here's what those same textbooks often leave out. Every breakthrough Sims achieved was built on the screams of enslaved black women who had no choice but to endure his experimental surgeries without anesthesia. See, Sims hadn't set out to be a gynecologist. It just so happened that in the 1840s, treating women was considered beneath most doctors. Distasteful, unsavory work. But when a patient fell off a horse and developed a painful condition, Sims found an opportunity. The woman had what's called a vesicovaginal fistula, essentially a hole between the vagina and bladder that causes constant pain and urine leakage. It was a common complication of difficult childbirth, and there was no known cure. Most doctors would have shrugged and moved on. But Sims realized he'd found his niche market, and in 1840s Alabama, he had access to his perfect test subjects. Enslaved women whose bodies belonged to their masters and not themselves. So Sims apparently struck deals with plantation owners. Loan me your injured slaves, pay their taxes and clothing, and I'll experiment on them until I figure out how to fix this problem. He even built an 8-person hospital right in Montgomery's slave trading district. We know the names of 3 women from Sims' own records: Lucy, Anarcha, and Betsy. But there were at least 7 enslaved women and girls who became his guinea pigs between 1845 and 49. Lucy was first. She was 18 years old, had recently given birth, and couldn't control her bladder. Sims positioned her naked on her hands and knees in front of nearly a dozen other doctors, then he began cutting. The surgery lasted an hour. Lucy screamed and cried throughout the entire procedure. Sims later wrote, Lucy's agony was extreme. She developed blood poisoning from his experimental techniques and nearly died. It took her months to recover, but Sims wasn't discouraged. He had a steady supply of test subjects and their pain wasn't his problem. Anarcha, a 17-year-old who had a traumatic delivery, endured at least 30 operations over 4 years. 30 surgeries on the same person without any pain relief. When these women couldn't bear the agony anymore, Sims would apparently drug them with opium to keep them from resisting.
Like, bro, it's crazy. Even in history class, bro, they don't talk about how deep and how crazy like it was. And but bro, don't let a Twitter bookmark check here, bro. What they call them? The Twitter blue butt boys. Don't let them hear this, man. If they do hear this, a Twitter blue butt boy is going to hit you with the, oh, so long ago. Why do you care about it? Why do you care about it, boy? Just get over it. Why do you care about it? Like, come on, come on. So long ago, you weren't even alive for it. Get over it, bro. Just guarantee, bro. If you have any frustration at all about anything, bro, just know Twitter blue butt boy will be in your replies telling you that you should go ahead and get over some.
That choice, instead of anesthesia, was because this man operated under the racist belief that black people didn't feel pain the same way white people did. This was willful dehumanization because after 4 years of perfecting his techniques on black bodies, Sims finally felt confident enough to try his methods on white women. Guess what? Those same procedures were performed with anesthesia. Then he moved to New York and opened his women's hospital, where he blamed any patient deaths on the sloth and ignorance of their mothers and the black midwives who attended them. Never his methods, of course. The thing is, for more than a century, America celebrated this man. Statues were placed in Central Park, outside the South Carolina State House, and at his medical school. The plaques praised his brilliant achievements without mentioning the women who suffered for them. Well, that was until 2018, because that year, activists finally got the Central Park statue removed. Dr. Kligman's agent.
I think, yeah, put that statue down, bro. How many statues of like people from back in the day that are just like hailed as heroes or something like that? Like Loki was probably on some evil ass shit. Because imagine how much is not documented about like some of these public figures and a lot of the crazy shit they did. There's probably a lot of like undocumented shit about it, bro.
Agent Orange experiments. And I hate to say it, but medical racism shows up again in this case. Dr. Albert Kligman walked into Philadelphia's homosexual prison in 1951 to treat an athlete's foot disease outbreak. But when he saw the sea of black faces staring back at him, he didn't see patients who needed healing. He saw something else, and I quote, "All I saw before me were acres of skin." Yes, he actually said that. He finished off by saying, "It was like a farmer seeing a fertile field for the first time." Acres of skin, not people. Just skin for his experiments. And what happened next would make Kligman a quote legend in dermatology and turn hundreds of incarcerated men into unwitting.
Who's that nigga from Full Metal Alchemist, bro? With the Shao Tucker. Yo, I'm not gonna lie, there's too many Shao Tucker ass in real life, bro. Even to this day, like freaky ass.
lab rats for quote legend in dermatology and turn hundreds of incarcerated men into unwitting lab rats for over 2 decades. Between 1951 and 1974, Kligman transformed Holmesburg into America's largest human testing facility. The men inside, most were black, many awaiting trial, most illiterate, became test subjects for a stunning array of dangerous substances: dioxin, a key component of Agent Orange, asbestos injections, radioactive compounds, hallucinogenic drugs.
Wow.
Prisoners were infected with herpes, candida, and human papilloma.
Herpes? Y'all giving herpes, bro? Oh my god, bro.
Virus. Some had their skin deliberately burned with chemical agents to test healing products. But Kligman's most lucrative discovery was tretinoin, better known as Retin A, the anti-aging cream that's now a billion-dollar industry. Apparently, every time someone buys retinol at CVS or Target, they're purchasing a product developed through the systematic torture of black prisoners, or at least a history in that line. The business model was brutally simple. Pharmaceutical giants like Johnson & Johnson would allegedly pay Kligman tens of thousands of dollars per experiment. The prisoners themselves got maybe $1.
Bro, Johnson is like that, bro?
For men who had no other way to earn commissionary, bail, or supporting their families, these experiments weren't really voluntary. They were arguably economic coercion disguised as medical research. One of these people was Irvin Moore, who survived over 50 years in prison and participated in multiple experiments. He recalls being assured that
it's crazy, chat. A lot of this, like, it's hard to maneuver in life because everything that has to do with everything low-key is built on some crazy shit, or like is on some like morally gray / just black ass shit, bro.
The tests were safe when he asked, quote, "I was naive enough to believe the powers that be," he said decades later. Moore participated in what prisoners called the milkshake test, living in isolation for 6 months, consuming only mystery protein shakes 3 times a day. Other survivors, like Herbert Price, described having radiation applied to their backs, leaving their skin feeling, quote, like leather for 3 to 4 months. By the 1960s, over 90% of all investigational drugs in America were first tested on prisoners. But Kligman's operation stood apart because of its scale, duration, and partnerships he cultivated, including contracts with the CIA and the US military. The duration and partnerships he cultivated, including contracts with the CIA and the US military. Scale, duration, and partnerships he cultivated, including contracts with the CIA and the US military. Scale, duration, and partnerships he cultivated, including contracts with the CIA and
I'm telling niggas though, bruh. Niggas be saying that, bruh. I know niggas be using it as jokes now, bro. But like, niggas be like, the CIA don't have nothing to do with this. Sometimes they do, bruh. Sometimes they do, my nigga. We'll meet again. Don't know when. I don't know when, but I know we'll meet again sometime. Come on, my nigga. Come on, bro.
The U.S. military of its scale, duration, and partnerships he cultivated, including contracts with the CIA.
These niggas be heralded as heroes, bro.
The experiments only stopped in 1974, not because anyone developed a conscience, but because the Tuskegee study had been exposed 2 years earlier, finally forcing America to confront a sick pattern of medical apartheid.
It only stopped because the other that they talked about, that Tough talked about 2 stories ago, got snitched on. That's the only reason niggas stopped, bro. Who know, bro? If that man didn't snitch to the journal lady, bro, who knows how long that shit would have been going on.
And Kligman showed no remorse. Years later, he told colleagues, "It was years before the authorities knew I was conducting various studies on prisoner volunteers. Things were simple then. Informed consent was unheard of. No one asked me what I was doing."
Informed consent. Nigga talk about things were so simple then. I miss the good old days. Yo, you, bro.
It was a wonderful time. A wonderful time? For him, maybe. For those men whose bodies he destroyed? Hell no. But it took until 2021 for the University of Pennsylvania to issue an apology and remove Kligman's name from awards and lectureships. Philadelphia did.
Is Kligman a lot? We gonna be if Kligman a lot, bro. We gonna let me not even say it, chat. But like, yo, I ain't gonna lie. Kligman pack coming soon, bro. In GTA.
Apologize until 2022. And the companies that made billions from products developed through prisoner torture, well, most haven't said a word. Neubauer's triplets.
Wow, bro, that's crazy. That's wow.
Now you might think that by the late 1960s, researchers might have learned a little something about consent and human dignity, right?
2021 is wild.
You're completely wrong. Because while the world was waking up to civil rights, a prominent child psychiatrist was conducting an experiment so secretive that the results are locked away until 2065.
What? Locked away for a year that we're not even, like, that hasn't even happened yet.
After everyone involved will be dead. See, Dr. Peter Neubauer had a simple question. Nature versus nurture. Are we shaped more by our genes or our environments? Most scientists would design studies to compare existing data, but Neubauer decided to play God instead. That's where Bobby Shafran enters our story. He walked onto his college campus in 1980 expecting the typical freshman experience. Instead, everyone greeted him like they'd known him for years. Guys slapping his back, girls kissing him. He'd never been there before in his life. Eventually, someone asked if he'd been adopted, where Bobby said yes. They asked if he might have a twin brother. That's how Bobby discovered Eddie Galland, who looked exactly like him and was already a student at the same college. Their reunion made the newspapers, but the story was far from over. A third young man saw the headlines, looked at the photos, and realized he was staring at his own face. David Kellman called the twins with the shocking news. "You're not twins, we're triplets."
Damn.
These 3 19-year-old men who just discovered they were brothers.
Damn.
But here's what they
look the
know
exact
yet.
same.
They've been deliberately separated as part of a psychological experiment. Dr. Neubauer, working with psychiatrist Viola Bernard and the Louis Wise Adoption Agency, had been splitting up twins and triplets for decades.
This nigga is an actual anime villain. Then I'm like, what's the experiment? The experiment is that they're literally separating. They're literally Bartholomew Kuma niggas separating them at birth, and niggas had to find each other later. They're just trying to see how the environment shifts their life. How each of them changed through a different environment. That's up. Like that's some real villain, bro. You're like, you basically control a nigga's whole life, bro. You set a nigga whole life up, bro. And then find this out later in life.
The family and the Louis Wise Adoption Agency had been splitting up twins and triplets for decades. The families adopting these children had
no. That's actually like that's actually evil,
bro. The study was methodical. Researchers would apparently visit the children periodically.
Raid, what's good, bro? What's good, bro? Good to see you, my nigga.
Taking photos, filming them. They told parents that these were routine checkups to ensure the adoption was going well. What they were really doing was documenting how genetically identical children developed in different environments. Sharon Morello was another study subject, and she remembers researchers coming to her home for 12 years. They had her do picture identification, math problems, even reading exercises. She was 49 years old when she learned she had a twin sister. But back to the triplets. After their reunion, they became like minor celebrities. They moved in together, appeared on talk shows, did a scene with Madonna, and opened a restaurant called Triplets Romanian Steakhouse. And the similarities between them were really uncanny. Same gestures, same preferences, same laugh.
Bro, these is the exact, like they're the same. Even these two had the same haircut too, bro.
But despite their joy at finding each other, all 3 brothers struggled with mental health issues. Eddie Galland struggled most of all. He was battling bipolar disorder and unable to escape his demons. He ended up taking his life in 1995. And we can see a pattern here because the study affected at least 15 children from 8 to 11 sets of twins and triplets. 3 of them have committed suicide. Many others have struggled with mental health issues their entire lives.
And then you got this smug looking ass smoking this pipe like he's Eustace from Courage the Cowardly Dog, bro. Just smiling.
As for the study results, we still don't know what concluded because Neubauer sealed all the records at Yale until 2065. That's right, the man who separated siblings, manipulated families, and contributed to
so we just will not know
made
until
sure his findings will remain secret for 75 years. Today, Bobby and David are in their 60s. Nearly 24 other siblings remain separated, many unaware they have brothers or sisters somewhere in the world. Some may have died without ever knowing.
Bro, what? So some of our parents might have a twin brother or sister out there that they just do not know about. Like, I guess like more American born citizens. Like, I don't think my parents have to worry about that because they're not from here. But like more American born citizens, like if your parents was born here type, they might have like a Loki sibling or something, bro. And they wouldn't know. Maybe. That's crazy, bro. That's crazy, nigga. Yeah, he's rotting. Hell yeah, he is, bro. The fact, the world is so fat. I was about to say the world is so up. The world is so up. That the fact that you can, really seal some shit is wild. How can you seal a document? So yo, nobody opened it till 2065, and then some real secrets, some real that needs to be like out, and you could just seal it and hide it and nobody will open it. Like, how are you sealing documents? I feel like you shouldn't be able to seal some shit, you know? That's what they doing now. Nigga, they doing that with the motherfucking files. They sealing that bitch. And then suddenly the shit just gonna be gone. You know? Like, how is that not out? That's crazy.
The Stanford Prison Experiment. At least the previous...
That one was actually very, very... Not saying the other ones weren't up because those like involved like a lot of physical like pain, but that was like some real crazy that you don't find out till later in your life, right?
Died without ever knowing. The Stanford Prison Experiment.
Release them files, nigga.
Experiments had clear villains. Racist doctors, greedy researchers, power-hungry institutions. But what happens when the monsters are just regular college kids? What happens when ordinary people transform into something unrecognizable in a matter of days? That's the terrifying question that psychologist Philip Zimbardo thought he could answer in the summer of 1971. Zimbardo placed an ad in a local Palo Alto newspaper. Male college students needed for psychological study of prison life. $15 per day for 1 to 2 weeks.
Damn.
Seems innocent enough, right? Just a simple psychology experiment about prison dynamics. More than 70 students applied, and after extensive screening to eliminate anyone with psychological problems, criminal backgrounds, or medical issues, Zimbardo selected 24 normal, healthy, middle-class college students. These weren't trouble kids or criminal types, they were your young, average college students looking to make some summer money. Then came the coin flip that would change everything. Half became prisoners, half became guards. That's it.
Oh, I heard about this before.
Who would become the victim and who would become the oppressor?
I heard about this
before. Didn't just
this
hand
is
out roles
crazy.
And start observing. He wanted realism. So on a quiet Sunday morning, actual Palo Alto police officers arrested the quote prisoners at their homes, handcuffed them, and transported them to the station for booking. Neighbors watched in confusion as these college kids were hauled away in patrol cars. The Stanford County Jail was constructed in the basement of the psychology building. Zimbardo had the laboratory doors replaced with steel bars, creating a solitary confinement closet called the Hole, and installed hidden cameras and microphones. No windows, no clocks, no connection to the outside world. When the prisoners arrived, they were stripped naked, deloused with a spray, and given uniforms that were deliberately humiliating, essentially dresses with no underclothes. They wore nylon stocking caps to simulate having their head shaved, and each had a heavy chain bolted to their ankle that they wore even while sleeping. The guards? They got khaki uniforms, mirrored sunglasses to hide their eyes, whistles, and billy clubs. Zimbardo told them to maintain order however they saw fit, with only one rule: no physical violence. Everything seemed manageable on day 1, but by day 2, something had shifted. The prisoners staged a rebellion, ripping off their ID numbers, barricading their cells with beds, and taunting the guards. How did the guards respond? They called in reinforcements, used fire extinguishers to force prisoners away from the doors, stripped them naked, and threw the ringleaders into solitary confinement. But that wasn't enough. The guards got creative with psychological warfare. They created a quote privilege cell, where well-behaved prisoners got their beds and uniforms back while troublemakers slept on concrete floors. Then they'd randomly switch who was in the good cell, making prisoners suspicious of each other, destroying any solidarity. By day 3, the first
all of these are a part of the experiment, right? So is just in a like there's a show or something that is like this. Like I'm trying to remember, but bro, so these is all just in the experiment, but these is dead ass like taking it there, bro. How did they decide who's gonna be a guard and who's gonna be a regular prisoner?
Complete breakdown. Prisoner 8612 began crying uncontrollably, screaming, and acting erratically. Even then, Zimbardo's first instinct wasn't concern. It was suspicion that the prisoner was faking to get out. When parents came for visiting day, Zimbardo manipulated the situation to make the prison seem pleasant. Prisoners were cleaned up, cells were polished, music played over the intercom. The parents, seeing their sons looking distressed, worked within the system to appeal to the superintendent rather than demanding their children's release. The psychological manipulation was becoming more sophisticated by the day. Guards forced prisoners to do push-ups, clean toilets with their bare hands, and perform meaningless tasks for hours. When prisoners needed to use the bathroom at night, they had to use buckets in their cells that guards sometimes refused to let them empty. By day 5, 3 types of guards had shown up: tough but fair rule followers, good guys who did small favors for prisoners, and about a third who were actively hostile and creative in their cruelty. These sadistic guards seemed to genuinely enjoy their power, though none of Zimbardo's personality tests had predicted this behavior. Things came to a head when a new prisoner, 416, went on a hunger strike to force his release. The guards threw him into solitary for 3 hours, triple their own 1-hour limit. When they offered other prisoners a choice, give up your blankets to get 416 out of solitary, or keep them and let him suffer all night, most chose their blankets. Zimbardo ended the study just after 6 days.
This is
it was supposed to go on for 2 weeks. In that time,
and it's crazy, some people, like even some people that y'all go to school with, or some people that y'all know, were like, if they had the power to do some things, they would do some crazy shit, bro. Just if they were in the role of power, bro. Like a lot of can't handle the position of power, bro, because they would low-key go like mad and crazy with power, like a lot of people actually.
5 prisoners had suffered emotional breakdowns, guards had become increasingly sadistic, and everyone involved had lost sight of the fact that this was supposed to be an experiment. Cincinnati radiation experiments.
There's at least a study in the video. Well, yeah, compared to separating you at birth, giving herpes and syphilis, this isn't like as crazy as those. Ain't nobody got physically harmed, but the psychological shit is crazy.
There's one more story that brings all the horrors together: racism, medical exploitation, military interest, and institutional gaslighting that lasted for decades. So we're heading to Cincinnati, where a radiologist convinced the Pentagon to let him blast cancer patients with the equivalent of 20,000 chest x-rays at once.
How did he convince them niggas? How? They can do that?
Convinced the Pentagon to let lasted for decades. So we're heading to Cincinnati, where a radiologist convinced the Pentagon to let him blast cancer patients with the equivalent of 20,000 chest x-rays at once. Dr. Eugene Sanger had a problem in 1960. The Cold War was heating up, and the Department of Defense wanted to know what would happen to soldiers exposed to massive radiation on a nuclear battlefield. They needed data on how the human body responds to full-body radiation doses that would likely be fatal. So Sanger, a radiologist in the University of Cincinnati, saw an opportunity. He applied for and received $671,000 from the Defense Atomic Support Agency to conduct, quote, whole-body radiation experiments. His test subjects were cancer patients at Cincinnati General Hospital. Between 1960 and 1971, Sanger and his team subjected 90 cancer patients to total body radiation doses far beyond what
how can he do
at the time. The patients thought they were receiving cutting-edge cancer therapy. What they actually got was a dose of radiation.
Probably, like, if you think that your cancer can be gone through some crazy technology, you'll probably just go and do it, bro, because at that point it's like
equivalent to standing at ground zero of an atomic bomb test.
Wow.
Yep, I keep repeating how lethal it is because it's actually unbelievable. Also, maybe too surprising based on the cases we've covered, 62 of the victims were African Americans with low incomes. They came to Cincinnati General, the charity hospital, seeking help for their cancer. Instead, they became test subjects for the Pentagon's nuclear warfare research. The ages range from 9 to 84 years old. Yeah, you heard that. 9 years old. Terry Lee Holmes was just a child when he was blasted with radiation in 1969. He died 7 years later. The oldest patient, 80-year-old Margaret Bacon, suffered a stroke during bone marrow removal, then received the full-body radiation and died 6 days later. All of the patients experienced horrific side effects: nausea, diarrhea, hemorrhaging, fatigue, and permanent disabilities. And Sanger deliberately withheld anti-nausea medication for 3 days after the radiation, unless patients
they wouldn't even give them the medicine.
He wanted to study their suffering. After each radiation session, urine and blood samples were shipped to an Army researcher at Fort Knox, Kentucky. The patient's pain was data points for military planners, wondering how long irritated soldiers could remain functional. And meanwhile, the bodies kept piling up. 1/4 of the victims died within 2 months of radiation exposure. 3/4 died within a year. By 1993, when federal investigators finally looked into the experiments, 89 of the 90 patients were dead. The experiments—
Why does it take niggas so long to look into the case? It's like, wait, nigga said federal agents. Wasn't this commissioned by the Pentagon, nigga? So wait, did y'all investigate yourselves? Yeah, like I know niggas do internal investigations all the time, but like, did y'all? Wait, I'm like, they said by federal agents, so y'all just investigated that? And like, it's like I could easily know that this shit's going on and kind of just like put a blind eye to it, and as soon as I want to care about it, I could be like, okay, we're gonna go look into it. But it's like during all that time, like who was looking into it? Like nobody was looking into this or like was knowing about this. But I thought y'all was the one who gave them the cancer patients.
It's only stopped in 1972 because of one person's courage, Martha Stevens, a University of Cincinnati English professor who wrote a faculty report exposing the radiation experiments. Combined with pressure from Senator Edward Kennedy, her whistleblowing finally ended the Pentagon contract. But like so many of these stories, the truth was buried for decades.
Bro, only because she survived. Only because she survived. That's wild. If she didn't survive, we probably wouldn't know about this. Maybe.
Alright guys, that's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like. If you haven't subscribed, it would be awesome if you could subscribe, and I will—
Nah, that's wild, nigga. Those experiments is crazy. It just goes to show you, bro, like, alright, there's probably some experiments going on right now that we won't know about till like we're like 60 or something like that. Like dead ass serious, bro. That's so insane. Be safe out here, bro. Don't agree to no crazy ass for a amount of money, because is gonna finesse and make you sign a contract and you're gonna end up in some crazy shit, bro. I don't know, man. That's wild. But anyways, we're gonna put this on the live channel. If y'all are watching this on the live channel, Twitch Blue Rye in the description. Come to the stream and shit like those. But yeah, I BBG.
Holy bitch back like I'm double heaven. Hold up, triple deuces. Holy bitch said we got all the juices. Hold up, speak to heaven. Eat that by my mama, demon minute. Me body chill, at least I won't buy. No, my dog on the pussy, they pack.